Welcome to So All May Flourish. This is a podcast featuring everyday believers in Dane County. Together, we will hear stories from guests sharing where they see God at work and what it looks like to see our city flourish. This is a podcast hosted by Collaboration Project, and our heart is to share stories, deepen our understanding of context, so that together we can better, more collaboratively love our neighbors, so that all may flourish. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of So All May Flourish. I'm super excited about today's guest. We have with us Qwantese Winters, and she is here to share with us about where she sees God at work. So, Qwantese, thank you for being here.
Of course.
Would you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself? What do we need to know? And I really would love to know what brought you to Dane County.
What brought me to Dane County was my family, actually. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. A lot of people who are from Chicago, the city, tell me that I'm not allowed to
say
claim
you're from
the
Chicago
suburbs as Chicago. So I just make that very clear. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. Okay. But that's where I grew up. And then when I was 6 years old, my family moved to Middleton, Wisconsin.
So the suburbs of Madison.
Literally, we're a suburban family, guys. I don't know what that is, but yeah, so we moved to the suburbs of Madison and Middleton, and that's basically where I stayed. Yeah. And my father got into ministry when he moved out here, alongside my mother, and yeah.
That's amazing. So you've been here for a good chunk of your life then?
Yeah, most of it. I've had some times where I've left out of Madison. So when I graduated high school, I went back to Chicago, stayed there for a year, came back to Madison, and then I went to Minneapolis, stayed there for a year, came back to Madison.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I'm a Madison girly at heart,
yeah.
But I don't want to admit it.
That's amazing. As you've spent all these years here in Madison, Dane County, or the suburbs in Middleton, what is one of your favorite places? And we're telling everyone to take notes, write this down. This is their time to get recommendations.
Okay.
Your favorite places in Dane County.
Okay, this is a wonderful question. So first place, the Arboretum. I love the Arboretum, just to go for a nice, beautiful walk, especially if it's during the fall time. Just gorgeous. I also really like Leopold's Cafe. They're the only place that you could get a nice coffee or a tea and read your book in a nice swanky space till midnight. I think this place is open. So that's a place that I love to take myself. And I'm just I don't feel like being in the house, but I don't really want to engage with people. I'm going to go to Leopold's. Another place that I really like, you know what? How Long Bay.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That place has my heart. I love pho, and they have a really good pho there. It has beef tendon and tripe and all the stuff. I think it's pho number 9. Yeah, it's
that's
pho
good.
number
So not
9.
only do we get the recommendation
You
of the
get the
restaurant,
meal.
we get the meal, the order, the number 9.
Exactly. Yeah, try it out. It's amazing. So I would say those are my 3 most frequented. Is that how you say that word? Frequented? There we go.
It is now.
Edit it out. No, you can keep it in here. Yeah, those are the places that I go to the most.
Incredible. Well, thank you. Now, we may have not known that we needed that recommendation, but now that we have it, we can all go order the number 9.
Exactly.
How Long Bay. And I would second the Leopold's thing too. That's a good one. So the whole idea of this podcast is we're talking about this idea, so all may flourish. And what does it look like for the city to flourish? But before we kind of dive more into those questions, I would love to know for you, when you hear that word flourish, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind are a lot of visuals, right? So what I see is plants that are fresh and green. I see water for some reason, dripping off of leaves. I see fresh fruit. But then when I think about what does flourish mean to me as a concept, I think that it looks like constantly growing. I think it looks like never allowing ourselves to be stagnant or stuck in one place or stuck in one mindset. I also think that it looks like being soft, because for some reason, like if you think about a lot of things that grow, there's like a tenderness to them that has to, like, they have to be like a little bit tender in order to be flexible and to get where they need to be. You can see that so often in just different things with nature, like children, like baby animals, like little chicklings, insects. When they first spread their wings, they're like very soft, they're fragile, very malleable. And so that tenderness, like that's what that relates to me, is just like this flexibility that's like so flexible that it's like it's fragile. And I think that a lot of times when we think about the word flourish, what comes up for us is success and like being successful at things. But I think I'm kind of leaning more into the growing aspect of it, the mistake making aspect of it, the lesson learned aspect of it that helps us to, get to where God wants us to be. So yeah. Sometimes many of us, I think, will know that we're flourishing. Like if we're like looking at our knees and we're like, wow, that's a lot of scrapes and scratches there.
Yeah.
I think I've, fallen down and gotten back up a lot, but you like learn something every time you do that. And I feel like that's flourishing to me.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
That is beautiful. Okay, so Qwantese, when you're talking about flourishing, I love how you keep referring to this idea of its growth and God getting you to the places that he wants you to be. You have found yourself in many different spaces here in Madison. So could you tell us more about that? Where do you find yourself, whether it's work or just the other communities that you are connected to?
I will answer that question by kind of just starting at the beginning of that journey and how I discovered where I needed to be and what places I needed to inhabit in Madison. So I had moved from Minneapolis. As I mentioned before, I had lived there for a year, like in my early 20s, and gotten really sick while I was out there and moved back to Madison to live with my mother, who basically was just there to help nurse me back to health and help to get my mental health together. And just during that time of rest, I really just grew stronger with the Lord and got a better sense of self. And one particular day, once I was like feeling ready in my body to start making more moves in Madison and just pursuing something that gave my life a sense of purpose and meaning, I had this, special time with the Lord. I went on a walk because I'm a nature girl. I love being outside, and I really feel like God's voice is amplified when I'm in like outside. Like I just, most of my revelations happen while I'm like looking at a tree or something. Like it's so deep.
I love that.
So I'm on this walk and I just felt, the Holy Spirit really amplifying like all of the things that I already love to do and were already doing, and was finding myself constantly reading about and writing about. And those three things were growing food or agriculture, cooking, and mothers and babies.
Wow.
And so he basically just like revealed to me, like, you see all these things that you're like already interested in and they come natural to you. Those are the things that I want you to focus on.
That's amazing.
And so the first thing that I did was I found out about this farm, Troy Farm. Shout out to Troy Farm. They're on the north side. It's an urban farm on the north side, and community garden. And they have a farmer apprenticeship program there. And I enrolled into the program.
Wow.
And I did that for about like 2 years. Learned so much about farming, so much about growing food, and so much about myself. I went into the program thinking like I'm definitely going to have my own farm one day, and I left and I said I'm definitely not.
So this whole suburban city girl and farm life like didn't quite mesh up.
I was like, wow, this is a lot. I appreciate my food so much more. And I so much more appreciate our local producers. Like, shout out to local farmers.
Yes.
You guys are amazing. Because
I picked up my farm fresh produce today from the farmer's market. So grateful.
Shout out to you guys, because that's hard work. That is hard work. And I just could not do it. Now, gardening, that's my thing. And that kind of brings us into the next thing that I do, or have done. So while I was working at Troy Farm, a producer over at PBS like was on the land. I forget what exactly it was that she was doing. I think she was filming an episode of Let's Grow Stuff, which is the show that I eventually became co-host of. And we were just like randomly talking to each other. Every time I saw her, I would give her a compliment because that's just how I am. Like, oh, girl, you look cute today. I like your shorts. Like, okay. And then randomly one day, the farm manager was like, yeah, somebody from PBS wants to get in contact with you. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I didn't know she was with PBS. Yeah. I just knew she was this, cute girl that was really nice to me that made me laugh. That's all I knew.
That's it.
That's literally all I knew. So she connected and she was like, hey, I really like your personality and I would love it if you would co-host this show. And the funny thing is that I actually have a media background.
Wow.
So I studied broadcast journalism in college. I didn't get my degree, but I did study it for a year. Okay.
It counts for something. Right?
Exactly.
I'd put that on a resume.
And then when I was in middle school and high school, I did like a lot of little shows in the community. So I've been on, there was Pastor David Smith, shout out to you, had this radio show called Let's Go to Church. And so I helped with that before. Club TNT was like this children's program on Madison. And I like used to host little segments of just like community stuff.
Can
and covering
we find
stuff in the
these
community.
segments anywhere?
I'm gonna reach out to Jeannie Erickson.
Can this be linked?
That would be a
as
blast from the past.
Content?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reach out to Jeannie because that'd be great. Yeah, I've like written articles, everything. So like that's like I love just being in front of the camera. I love talking a lot. So then that happened, and did that for a while. We're taking a pause now because I'm going into school. So that's on pause for a little bit, but.
Can I just name quick though, that's so cool how you're, again, going back to your idea of flourishing, being like, okay, you're just waiting and God's going to lead you where you need to go to start growing, and you're in the place, one place he has you, and the next place happens and you find it.
And you know what? God is so amazing like that because that's literally just been the pattern in my life is that he'll point me in a direction. I don't have the full story, and knowing how I am, like I'm already trying to figure out like the next 5 years, the moment that I get one piece of the direction that he gave me. And he's always just like, chill, bro, like relax, just do this one thing that I told you to do, write the application, just learn the job, whatever, and I'll let you know what to do next. So that's literally like common thread. And the way that I found myself into being a doula is actually because so when my time in Minneapolis is a whole testimony, and we'll get into that another day, another time, okay? But a part of that testimony is that when I had moved to Minneapolis, trigger warning, I'm just gonna talk about something that's a little sad, right? I'm not gonna get into too much detail, but just so that you're not like, whoa, seriousness. It just hits you in the face.
We welcome it.
I moved to this new place and found myself in an abusive relationship. I didn't have a place of my own, so I was like constantly hopping from couch to couch, and whether or not I was sleeping on the street was basically contingent upon whether or not the person whose home I was in still liked me at the time or would allow me to stay. And during that time where I was living that lifestyle, I would meet young ladies who were pregnant and they were in a worse off situation than myself. So they were like actually on the street, or they were actually having to live in a shelter. They weren't in someone else's home. They actually didn't know where they were going to get their next meal from. Some of them were on drugs. Some of them struggled with their mental health. And I built a relationship with some of those women just naturally because we were always around each other. And there was one particular girl who had gone to the hospital. She kind of just like fell off the map. I was like, I haven't seen her around. And then one day I saw her again and she had a baby. And Qwantese being Qwantese, I'm like so excited for her. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you're glowing. You did that, girl. So proud of you. Da-da-da. And she was just so sad and so depleted because all she could talk and tell me about was just about her horrible experience in the hospital and how she was treated because she was a Black homeless woman who had a drug addiction, right? And she just told me about how that felt like one of the most unsafe moments of her life. Now, this is someone who lives on the street, and they're saying that giving birth to their child felt like the most unsafe thing they've ever done in their life. And I remember walking away from it just feeling so angry and like, what can I do? What can I do? And then one day I discovered this documentary, which is called The Business of Being Born. It's by Ricky Lake. And in that documentary, she talked about doulas and what doulas were. And immediately, like, a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm supposed to do. And so I did. After I moved back to Madison, the Lord reminded me, hey, remember how I told you about what a doula was? I revealed that information to you. Yeah, you go ahead and pursue that now. You're ready to look into that. So I did, got trained to become a doula, and that's what I've been doing. And it's interesting because I've had people tell me like, oh, it's really interesting how you've like blended all of the things that you do into this one thing. But it was while I was working at the farm that he kind of like told me how to be a doula. And that's where the food aspect of it came in. I was like giving this moniker, the food doula, that I've like really leaned into over the years. Because while I was growing this food, I was just reminded of how medicinal just fresh food is to our bodies and the power that it holds when it comes to healing. And I experienced that. My mother nursed me back to health through the food that she cooked, right? Wow. And just the Lord and, you know, God's grace over my life. But so he reminded me of those things as I'm like working and on the ground and planting seeds and harvesting vegetables. And I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna cook food for mothers. And I'm going to teach people about like how to eat in ways that are supportive to their bodies. And yeah, so then I did that, ended up there. And now I am going back to school to get my master's in public health at Mount Mary University. I'm currently working with First Care Clinic as a care coordinator there. And so, you know, moms who find out that they're pregnant, but they don't have a lot of resources, they come to me and I connect them to resources in the community. I go to Northside Christian Assembly. That's my church. I serve there as a leader, and I'm also on the worship team. They're my family and I love them so much. I love that place and I love everyone that goes there. Shout out to my pastors, the Obies. Love those people. They are absolutely amazing.
Some good people over there.
They are some good great people. I love them. But yeah, so those are really all the places in my house.
In your house.
Because I love to be in my house.
An important space as well as mentioned. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I think it's so cool to get a glimpse of, again, how sometimes like we don't expect the places that we're in are going to be the places that the Lord uses to take us to what's next, but that he's present all around us, whether it is meeting a mother and that's going to spark something to say, oh, there's a next step that I can take. Like there's something that I can do about this, or whether it is now in your day-to-day job where you're connecting people to care. So it's so cool to hear just all those things that are connected and how God is in every single detail of even the passions, the desires that we have in our life of enjoying really good food. That's a good thing and a beautiful thing.
Come on now.
So I would love to hear a little bit more of like now in some of your roles, like where are you currently seeing God at work in your midst?
There are a lot of things that I could say because there are things, work that I've seen people doing in Madison that I'm like, wow, I think that's incredible. And then I'm like thinking about, well, what do I encounter on a day-to-day basis that shows that? So I think I'll just talk about both. So in Madison, I meant to look up this gentleman's name because I want to give him just due. But there is a man out here in Madison. I think his last name is Perry. And I just recently found out about him through LinkedIn. He kind of popped up and he has a very like beautiful focus on Black men's health.
Wow.
And he focuses on mental health and also physical health. He's like organized these walks for Black men in Madison so that they can build their health. He has a free clinic where like Black men can come and get like healthcare services that they need. Incredible. And I was fascinated and inspired and so grateful for that work because I feel like Black men do not get enough support in that area. Black women are just now, like, the people are starting to pay attention to the statistics and what it's like being Black and woman when you're going to the doctor. But we have not gotten a lot of information about what it looks like to be Black and a man when it comes to getting health care, getting wholesome health care, healthcare that humanizes you, right? And so, yeah, I think that that's beautiful work, and I think that God's doing a lot of things through that work. I can see, Aaron Perry. Thank you.
We had some help from the sidelines here. Shout out,
yes,
Becca.
Aaron Perry is his name.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I think that we definitely need to make sure that we're prioritizing Black men when we're having conversations about health, whether that's physical or mental. There are even statistics about how, Black men are unaliving themselves at the highest rates. Wow. But that's not something that I heard that statistic for the first time because of Aaron Perry. And I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's beautiful work that's happening in the city. And then I think also another place where I'm seeing God at work is my current place of work, which is First Care Clinic. This is a free clinic in Madison where you can get free ultrasounds, you can get free pregnancy testing, free STI testing, and same day treatment. This is a place where you can be connected to resources, where you can build a community. Like, it's literally a one-stop shop for being loved on by people and supported by people and served by people who have a heart to do that work. And so I see God at work. I see the ways in which he is showing people that they're worthy, regardless of where they are in life. I see the ways that he's restoring families and relationships within families. I think he's going to do a lot of amazing things through First Care Clinic and through all of the other amazing organizations in Madison, just doing work to serve people who have been marginalized.
So families being transformed, relationships restored, and so much of it starting with just even the simplicity of access to quality care.
Literally.
And or even conversations like you're talking about Black men and their health and their wellness, starting with those conversations, what that can lead to. That is powerful. So with all of that, what are you sensing now as some of those faithful next steps? That's kind of some of the language we use here to describe like the invitations that we're sensing from God. What are some faithful next steps for you that you are sensing right now in this place?
I love that question. The thing that has been coming up for me the most in just like my silent time with the Lord or on my walks, as you guys know, like I said,
she's a walker.
I love to be outside. Okay. And what I've been getting from the Lord the most is how important it is. And I think I've talked about this on Instagram before, of just like how important it is to make sure that we are people's reason for believing in goodness and believing that like humans can love and humans can protect and support each other. There's so much going on in the world. There's always so much going on in the world. There's nothing new under the sun. Okay. So it's just like there's always just these heinous, horrible things that are constantly happening. And I feel like sometimes we give in to the discouragement that naturally comes up when the world is like worlding and not being cool or
the
nice
world
at
is
all.
worlding. Yes.
Because we see all of these things, we become so discouraged that it makes us calloused. Like we're either on the side where we're like, well, there's nothing that we can do that can make the world a better place, so I'm not even going to try, and I'm just going to be sad and upset and horrified by everything that's happening. Or you're on the side where you just don't think that you have any responsibility for it, and you're just like, I'm just going to focus on myself and worry about myself. And because I know that the world is always going to be the world, then I'm just like not going to do anything. And I think that while both are understandable, I think that especially as believers, that we need to make sure that we're being the salt of the earth by the way that we're loving people. Yes. You know what I mean?
That is so good.
Like we should be the greatest example of just like kindness and
enhancing them,
and
like
joyful
building them
people.
up.
And just like, like when people are around us, like they should walk away with their cup a little bit more full. I'm not saying you got to give them your all, right? Like you can save some for yourself, but I do think that people should interact with us and walk away like, oh, wow, maybe life isn't so bad.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So those are my faithful next steps, is just to be people's reason for believing in goodness.
I mean, it sounds like you've even been practicing that, like thinking back to the story you told about getting connected to, was it the PBS broadcaster, the show, just from like those compliments, hyping her up, those types of things. I love that. Could you give us some more like practical ways you think that plays out?
So I think that plays out through generosity. I think that, like, I feel like we all have those moments where we're like, I think I want to pay for the person behind me. I think I want to. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to the movies instead.
The bank account, or what we want to do. Yes.
Or like, you know, maybe there's a person that, you know, comes to your mind, or like you see somebody at work and they look like a little bit sad. Like, you check in on them, like, you know, just being courteous and kind, thoughtful. Or even the way that I like to think about it is romantic. Now, often when we think about romance and like doing romantic things, we think about it in terms of a romantic relationship. But as a single lady, who's also a lover girl, I've been leaning into the fact that like I can do romantic things for other people with the intention of just making sure that they know that like you are special. There is someone on this planet that thinks about you. So like maybe like your friend, like you guys are besties and you don't verbalize to them enough about like how much you love them or the role that they play in your life. Write them a letter and like be like, there's a letter at your door. Have some flowers with it and their favorite snack. Like literally,
some
like
chocolates.
You
maybe?
And some
maybe the number 9 from How Long Bay. There you go.
Take notes.
We got chocolate. That was just ushered into the screen here. I think we're loved. But I think that is so important of how you're talking, like what that can truly do to someone to help them feel seen and to know like you are seen and we care.
Exactly.
And that right there can go such a long way.
It really can.
So good. So the final really question is just, is there anything else that you would share to everyday believers in Dane County, an encouragement to people that also find themselves in spaces like you do?
You know, for the people who are doing ministry work, or you're doing like some sort of like community focused work, and you're also a believer, what I would leave you with is just a gentle reminder that you are not God. And it's not your, like you in particular, or your works in particular that transforms people's lives. It's the power of God that does it, and you're an instrument of his power. And that's going to take a lot of pressure off of you. I'm not shooting shots here. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. This is to help you.
You don't have to be gentle. That's a good reminder. You can give a firm reminder. We are not God.
I'm trying to help you so that you can get some rest.
That's okay.
It's at the end of the day, it's the power of God. You don't have to be articulate. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to like have every resource at the tip of your fingers. You just have to trust God and be obedient and do what he tells you to do when he tells you to do it concerning the people that you are serving, and you're going to be just fine. And I'm saying that like literally being like, yep, and make sure you remember that for yourself too, because I definitely struggle with it every day. But that's just something that I know that I'm working on, and I think that it would help you guys too.
Beautiful. Wow, so many things that I'm like, I gotta take notes on. I'm excited to listen to this and to go back. So thank you for your time. Yes. Thank you for sharing with us pieces of your story, letting us in on not only your world, but how you got there. Yeah. And to see all the beautiful, good work that is happening around you. So thank you so much. And I hope that this encourages all of you that God is at work in our city, that there is flourishing that is happening all around us. And we are excited for you to listen to this and for more stories to come.